Hey, what's going on there, YouTube? This is Yasso here. So this weekend, there's this summon event called Deadly Debuffer Summon Draft. And from this time period right here, you have a chance of summoning one of these pretty cool champions here. So from your Ancient and Sacred Shards, you have a chance of Vizier, Harvest Jack, Occult Brawler, Ursine, and Stagnite. And then from your Void Shards, you have a chance at Venus, Madame Sirius, and Sylar. So in this video here, what I want to talk about is Venus, who is the featured Void Champion. So let's jump right into her abilities right away here. Her A1 attacks two enemies 2 times, and each of the hit has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So right away when you see this, the first thing that comes to mind is definitely Clan Boss. The reason for that is because poison just puts up so much damage against the clan boss. Her A2 attacks all enemies and has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. And when you do get this skill to send it, then it attacks all enemies and has a 75% chance of placing both the 60% decreased defense and a 25% weakened debuff for 2 turns. And what's really cool about this ability here is that not only that it enhances your damage in Clan Boss, but when you bring her into Dungeon, it attacks all enemies. So basically she sets up your nuker to be able to nuke. And another cool thing is that she's on a 3-turn cooldown. Most champions with the decreased defense and weakened debuff ability typically has like a 4-turn or 5-turn cooldown, and you have to book it for it to drop down to a 3-turn cooldown. Now with Venus, you don't have to worry about that. She comes automatically with 3 turns. And then her A3 is a 5-turn cooldown, and it attacks all enemy and has a 50% chance of placing an HP burn debuff for 2 turns. And then if you book this, it drops to a 4-turn cooldown, and then that becomes a 75% chance of placing that debuff. And then her A4. Now her A4 is only available if Cupidus is on the same team, but then if you pair them together, it's actually really cool. It removes all buffs from all enemies, and it gives Venus a 50% chance of granting an extra turn. Now the first thing that comes to my mind when I read this ability is Arena, because in Arena, a lot of the champions or a lot of the teams you're facing against will often like always be putting up buffs. So what Venus does is she's going to strip all those buffs off, and then she has a chance of going an extra turn right after that. So that's actually really powerful. And then her aura increases all of your champions HP by 33% in all the battles. It basically means that you can use her everywhere. So should you summon Venus? And here's a little story about myself. I ended up summoning Venus during the previous 10x summoning event, which was for Sacred Order. And ever since I summoned Venus, I have been using her in like pretty much almost every dungeon content. And then from time to time, I would bring her into Clan Boss. What's also pretty cool is that I actually compared her to Rosin Scarhide, and that video is available on my YouTube channel. So what a lot of people care about is bringing her to Clan Boss. So let's do that first here, alright? So the team that I'm showcasing Venus in today is a debuff extension team. I know that Vizier is also one of the feature legendaries in the summoning event, but I don't own a Vizier. However, I do own Bulwark and Septimus. So in most cases, you probably won't run 2 debuff extenders on the same team. But because Venus covers both the damage enhancer, because she does put up the decreased defense and weakened debuff, and she also covers the poison row. And that opens up a flex position, and that's why we threw in a second debuff extender here. So what this team does is that we have Bulwark as my lead, so that he becomes the target of the Clan Boss's stun attack. And then I'm also running Sepulchre Sentinel, who will be putting up the block debuff in order to block Bulwark from getting stunned. What we want here is for Bulwark to be the target of the stun, because that's another chance to proc Bulwark's passive, which is to extend the debuff that Venus will be putting out. And within a clan boss attack cycle, that's 3 chances to extend debuffs coming from Bulwark. And of course, this is on Void Affinity. For Septimus, each one of his attack has a chance to extend debuffs. So within a clan boss attack cycle, Septimus will have 3 turns. However, I am running a Skull Crusher, and Skull Crusher will be putting up the counter attack buff, and that means that Septimus will be counter attacking twice due to the 2 AoEs that the clan boss does. So that's 2 more additional attacks that Septimus will be doing. So from Septimus alone, then that's 5 chances to proc the debuff extension. Together, Septimus and Bulwark has an 8 chances per attack cycle to extend the debuff. And again, this is on Void Affinity. So the role of Venus on the team is to put up as much debuff as possible. Her A1, A2, and A3 all have debuffs. And with counterattack, then she's going to get extra hits with her A1, which will be putting up even more poisons onto the clan boss. And that's what we want. So for this video, I did gear Venus down a bit from what I had her previously. And this was her stats before I did some re-gearing. And as you can see here, I do have high critical stats on her, while still maintaining a really good HP and defense and accuracy stats on her. Now, this was a extremely late game Venus, and these stats are really hard to reach for any normal players. Now, for the change, here's what I did. I dropped her critical stats and made her more easily buildable. So the stats that I recommend for Ultra Nightmare is to have over 35k HP, over 3.5k defense, and over 240 accuracy. And for the speed, it's counterattack speed 2. And you want her at these stats because the HP and defense is really there for her survivability. Anything lower than these stats will typically end up with Venus dying early. The accuracy is there because, as I stated earlier, Venus is all debuffs, and we want those debuffs to land. And for a later game build, what you can do is you can start increasing her critical stats, kind of similar to what I had earlier in my previous stat screenshot. By increasing the critical stats, it's really min-maxing her full damage potential, because her damage is not dependent on just the poisons. Now her pure damage is also putting up damage too. For her masteries, I went with the offense and defense tree. I basically went and grabbed War Master for the offense tree, and then the defense is there to mitigate a bit of damage. However, if you're struggling with accuracy, then go with the support tree and make sure you take Master Hexer. Master Hexer will give Venus a 30% chance to extend her debuffs by 1. Alright, so let's look at the battle here for a bit, and I'll speed it up to the end. Now look at the debuff count and stack, and I want to show you that because that's what a debuff extending team does. It stacks up debuffs and increases the turn count, and will allow the poison to do most of the damage over time. So we're coming up towards the end of the battle here, and Skull Crusher did end up dying a lot earlier than I expected in this battle here. However, after this battle, I did do a secondary battle just to double check the damage of the team composition, and I'll show that at the end of this battle too. So here's why I ran Venus in the debuff extension team. Venus alone cannot keep a full bar of poison by herself. When you're using Venus without a debuff extender, then you really need to pair her with another damage dealer that is not poison dependent. This is because most of Venus's damage is coming from the poison. So if you pair her with another poisoner, then what happens is that they basically take away damage from each other. And that's because there's the 10 debuff limit that you can put on to the clan boss at any given time. So here's my second test run, and I did a little better. But being able to do 24 million in the first key and then 26 million in the second key will then put this team at a 3 key potential for getting the Transcendent Chest on Ultra Nightmare. So let me cover how you should use Venus in dungeons really quick, because she's there for the same reasons for almost all of the dungeons. And Venus is extremely powerful in dungeons because of her A2. Her A2 attacks all enemies and puts up decreased defense and weakened debuff on all enemies. So when you run Venus in dungeons, you want her to go just right before the nuking champion, because Venus will set up the debuffs and then it allows your champion to nuke right after. And the strategy works in pretty much every dungeon. For spiders, it works great, but if you don't have nuking champions, and instead you want to go with a HP burn strategy in spider, then Venus is also one of the few champions in Raid Shadow Legends with an AoE HP burn. And if you look at her ratings, then she's highly rated everywhere, and I also agree with these ratings. If you did end up summoning her, then congratulations, she's one of the best and most versatile champions in Raid Shadow Legends. Alright, and that's all I have for today. If you like this video, then please click the like button below and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions or comments for me, then please let me know in the comments section below. Thank you.